Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining today's webinar. And we have a tight schedule today, so we're going to start right away for everybody who's coming late. The recording will be made available afterwards. But what will we answer today? What question? So will SAP S/4HANA migration boost process modernization? And for that, I have with me today Joachim Hackmann. Joachim Hackmann is our Principal Analyst here at PAC and the head of our Business Application Software Related Services practice. Joachim has been with PAC, he told me this week, already 10 years, and he's been in the industry for more than 20 years. I'm Felix Jones. I'm Senior Account Manager here at PAC, and I will be hosting you today. So a few technical information beforehand. So all of you will be on mute, all the participants. And if you have any questions, please use the Q&A at the bottom. We will have a Q&A session at the end of our webinar. And there we will try to answer as much as we can. But if we don't get the chance to answer all your questions, we will contact you afterwards and answer whatever questions you had. Then, as I mentioned, the webinar will be recorded and will be made available to you afterwards. The same counts for the slide decks. What will we cover today? 3 topics. So first, Joachim will give you a glance over the SAP Services Market. Then he will share the results of our CxO user survey. And then as a third point, I will share some SAP-related, our SAP-related research agenda, so the topics that we have planned for the coming months. And then we will do the Q&A session. And with that, I'll hand over the microphone virtually to Joachim.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you for the introduction. And it's almost 10 years, not yet 10 years with PAC. Nevertheless, as Felix already mentioned, I'm leading the BAS cluster, which covers not only SAP, but also Oracle, Salesforce, Microsoft, and other business applications platforms. But at the moment, our focus clearly lies on S/4HANA. We are very busy with S/4HANA migration, as user companies are too. So, and this is why the topic of today's webinar is, of course, S/4HANA migration, the status quo of S/4HANA migration among European user companies. But allow me to start with a brief look at our city market figures, only to illustrate the environment and the importance of the SAP Services Market we are talking about. What you see on the left side is the IT Services Market in EMEA according to our current market scenarios, the orange square. And at the bottom, you see the SAP Service Market in the blue rectangle. And it accounts for 11% of the total market at European level. And what's quite interesting is that the ratio, the share of SAP services in relation to overall markets varies slightly depending on the country. For example, France has around about 9% compared to 11% on European level. And the UK has only 8% of SAP services, SAP-related services to overall services. What's interesting here is that there are two countries that do not fit to this pattern. It's Switzerland with 18% and Germany with 21%. These both companies are driving a very strong markets in terms of SAP-related services. But what I actually wanted to draw to your attention is the right side, the right-hand side of this slide. While we are seeing the SAP-related services, the growth of the SAP-related services is much higher than the total IT services. And while we're seeing slight slowdown in growth in many service markets, even one stable and fast-growing market such as cloud computing or cloud-related services and Salesforce-related services, we do not seeing currently slowdowns in SAP market. Growth rates here are well above the total market and will remain at a higher level for the foreseeable future. And this is mainly due to S/4HANA, of course. S/4HANA drives the overall services market, and this brings we will see, of course, the growth rates will slow down over the next year. This is a natural effect. The more mature market comes, the slower the growth rates. However, what we see in the S/4HANA market, we see several forces that drive the growth. For example, the continuing high demand for migration projects. I come to this later on during my presentation. And inflation. Our figures are not adjusted to inflation, and it's further effect for the inflation comes from the salary side. We see a tough competition of service providers for experienced SAP clients to fulfill the demand of clients for S/4HANA migration projects. And they recruit consultants from each other, which usually goes with an increase in salaries and an increase with for daily rates. And this, of course, drives the growth rates or the volume and the growth rates in the S/4HANA related services market as well. But we also see some forces that are slowing down the growth rates. This is mainly the more companies have already migrated to S/4HANA, the less demand for S/4HANA migration support, of course, exists. But there's also a second effect or force we are seeing. The more mature the market becomes, the more tool support comes, the more automation with the conversions, S/4HANA conversions comes, the more AI-based technical migration support comes into the place here. And this helps companies to complete projects, migration projects more quickly. And last but not least, the more companies opt for pure SaaS, SaaS solutions, the less integration and adoption services is needed here. Okay, let's go to the results from our CxO services. Just a quick overview over the composition of the study, the survey. We had in total more than 550 companies that are participating to our survey. We have a balanced mix according among IT decision makers and decision makers on lines of businesses, as well a balanced mix regarding the size of the companies, with more than 1,000 employees in minimum. Yeah. And the focus was on UK, France, and Germany, as these are the biggest markets with more than 100 participants coming from companies that are located in one of these major countries. And the main question of our study, of our survey was, are companies using SAP S/4HANA migrations as a trigger for modernization of the business processes and as a booster for digital transformation? Let's start with the status quo of the S/4HANA migration in the companies and the European user organization. The good news is that the S/4HANA migration is making progress. According to our study, our latest survey, around 44% of the companies surveyed have completed the migration, which is a significant increase compared to our survey last year, when just over a third of the respondents stated that the main systems have already been migrated. And the share of completed migration projects depends heavily on the country. For example, organizations from Germany and the UK are well advanced, with 52% of companies in Germany have already been completed and with the migration, and 50% of the UK stated that they have, all in all, completed the migration to S/4HANA. In contrast, organizations from France and the Nordics are with the least progress. From France, around about 34% have already migrated their main components, their main systems to S/4HANA. In the Nordics is 37%, sorry. However, what we see when looking in the detailed data is that in both the organizations from both countries have high shares of companies that are already in the planning phase. They are already stepped in the phase of concrete plannings. So the situation, even in France and the Nordics, are not that bad as it seems to be on the first glimpse. So what are the expectations for the S/4HANA migration? What really is an interesting finding was that the end of the maintenance in 2027 might be a trigger for companies to start the migration to S/4HANA, but it's not the main motivation. It's not the main reason for them, because a lot of companies are suffering from the current legacy application landscape, and they are striving for modernization to modernize their ERP landscape anyway. The end of standard maintenance is not the main reason to start S/4HANA, and this is also reflected in the expected benefits, the majority of which are aimed at modernization, digitalization, and access to innovation, but also process improvements, process improvements and automation. All of which are topics that make companies future-proof and form the basis for future innovation. By the way, these are all goals SAP is promoting as well for this S/4HANA migration, and this might be a hint that in this case, SAP might have listened very carefully to what customers want. And on the other side, the main challenges for companies which were stated in our survey are changes in business processes. This is a little bit expected, not a surprising result, as we all know, as soon as processes or workflows in an organization are touched, things getting usually complicated. The technical side of a migration of a project might be complicated, but in general, it's usually manageable. But when it comes to intervening processes and workloads, when employees with their daily work are touched and are affected, usually things become difficult. And this is one of the key challenges the decision makers are facing. This, of course, goes hand in hand with the degree of customizing. In the past, lots of companies have already customized their ERP, their SAP landscape to their specific needs. The processes are adapted to their specific needs. And even if companies wanted to follow the standard processes of SAP, there is a high degree of customizing to adapt their specific needs to the standard processes of SAP that are implemented in the core or in the S/4HANA core. And last but not least, of course, every time migration costs, S/4HANA migration is very expensive, and this is one more key challenge to argue to find reasons why to migrate for S/4HANA, because actually it's just an update of a software release, and which is very expensive. Next slide brings us to the RISE topics. This is one main topic that drives companies around currently. It causes a lot of confusion, the RISE contract, which is heavily promoted by SAP to the user companies. RISE contracts are basically intended for existing customers, and the grow, for example, the grow contract is more for net new companies for SAP, and RISE addresses existing companies, and it requires a migration to a cloud-based deployment mode. Usually, SAP favors platforms or public environments from AWS, Microsoft, Google, and Alibaba. It's not that important for Europe, but theoretically, you can move to Alibaba as well. Strictly speaking, there are also versions for sovereign cloud offerings and on-prem licensing, but SAP actually only promotes and incentivizes the public cloud-based versions. And according to our survey, more than 1/3 of respondents have signed or intend to sign a RISE contract. For me, it was a little bit surprising, a surprisingly high figure number. I expected it lower, but you have to take into account this figure does not only include those companies that already have signed RISE, but also the companies that expect to sign a RISE contract in the future. And against the background that SAP put companies heavily into RISE contracts, it makes sense that the high number makes absolutely sense. However, lots of companies, 44%, prefer to move to a private cloud edition. This is a little bit in contrast to the RISE offering of SAP. So this reflects the cautious of companies to move to public cloud environments. They are not willing to follow SAP into the public cloud environments. What is a little bit, or what's much more interesting is that in contrast to this, lots of companies are open to follow SAP in the area of the clean core approach. SAP, not only as part of the RISE contract, but also in general, forces companies or promotes the clean core approach. The company will do all the extensions for the S/4HANA migration outside of the core, and this means that companies have to adopt parts of their business applications or main parts of their business, shares of their business processes to the standards, to the specifications of S/4HANA. And this brings us to the next topic, to the BTP. BTP is intended to be the main topic, the main platform for customizing, for adapting to SAP standard processing, and to integrate extended offsite, off-core extensions to the S/4HANA platform. In our first survey, the BTP had a surprisingly low adoption rate, which may have to do with the fact that the BTP was not well known as a brand at that time. BTP was first introduced as product name, as brand in 2021, and it started actually only as a brand, as an umbrella brand for existing products, such as analytics products such as SAP Analytics Cloud, data offerings, for example, S/4HANA, and application development integration offerings, for example, SAP Integration Suite. Since then, since last year or since a couple of months and years, SAP has strongly promoted the use of BTP and also integrated it into its RISE offering. And this might be result in a high adoption rate, which is shown here in our current survey. However, the adoption rate also varies from country to country. For example, in France, we see the lowest usage rate of around about 60%. And whereas in the UK, we see more than more than 80% of respondents that already use BTP. Process redesign. We have already learned that lots of companies are open or willing to follow SAP's core approach, which usually means that they had adopt to the SAP standard processes, and the high usage rate of BTP also might be a hint that companies are very open to do the S/4HANA, to do a process redesign. Against this background, it was a little bit surprising that only 40% of respondents stated that are willing to do a redesign of the business processes in the course of S/4HANA migration. This varies a little bit on depending on the countries as well. For example, we see a much more openness, willingness in France, with 54% are willing to do the redesign of processes, and on the other hand, UK is not that much open for redesign. We were a little bit surprised by these figures, as I mentioned before, other results from the survey intended or give us the hint that there is the huge willingness to do the process redesign. So we did a special analysis, which is only doable. Unfortunately, it's only doable on European level, as on country level we have the sample rate would be too small. And here you see those companies that are currently in the planning phase of the S/4HANA migration. This is only those responses that are currently in the preparation, in the planning phase for S/4HANA. And when we check these companies, we see that 66% of those companies are willing to redesign the business processes. Yeah. In contrast, those companies that have already migrated to S/4HANA, there are 77% that say no, we will not do the process redesign. This is a notable difference based on the stage, on the level, on their journey towards S/4HANA. This was a special analysis we did in this case. It's not doable for all of the results, but in this case, the sample rate was high enough to do this specific analysis. And this brings me already to my last slide. Here you can see an overview of all topics we have covered in this survey. For all of these topics, we have tons of data and figures. We can do analysis based on the decision makers' positions, based on countries, on vertical and so on. And if you are interested in this, feel free to approach me, to contact me. We can do and yeah, we can provide insights to this. And with this, I would like to hand over to Felix again.
Yeah, Joachim, thank you very much for sharing these insights that you gathered from our survey. So as a next point on our agenda, I will share briefly a few SAP-related research topics that we will be covering in the following months. So for each of the products, I'll show you briefly where and when we will publish what. So just for you here as a graphical explanation. So the text box at the bottom is the production time, and then there's a line that is showing you when we will publish that product within the year. So I will be starting with the CxO survey that Joachim also just shared the results from. The work survey that we did, we finalized end of Q3. And we will repeat the survey again in Q2 2025. So just end of Q2, we'll be having the results available for either working with you on marketing content. So you can use the results and we create a content for you based on that, a white paper, blog post, or a webinar. Or we also help you to communicate it internally and base your strategic decisions on these results. We can do workshops for your sales or strategy teams. Also, what I have here are two CxOs, one specifically on the banking industry and one specifically on the manufacturing industry. Within those CxOs, we will probably also cover the SAP topic, specifically for those industries. So as Joachim already mentioned, in the first part of his presentation, he shared the market figures of SAP Services and the whole of IT services, which we publish on our market research platform, CxO. So there you can find market figures and forecasts that just help you to identify those markets with the best potential for you and also help you prioritize your investments. So during the course of the years, we do update our figures and we specifically have SAP Services related figures for more than 35 countries and regions in Europe and worldwide. And we also have those figures in our core markets broken down into 9 industries. So you'll find that on CxO, and you can compare single countries and single industries with that. Then for the radar, and some of you might know our radar, some of you might not. Our radar is an IT provider benchmark, which can be used on the one side for marketing purposes if you are provider listed on that radar. It is, however, the purpose of the radar is to provide end users with a selection tool for the best provider for their projects. So I have here 2 other ecosystems besides SAP. So we are currently working on the ServiceNow related services radar. And in Q2 2026, we will also publish the Salesforce related services radar. But for SAP, as you can see here, we will be starting production beginning mid of Q2 and publish it in Q1 2026. If I look at the clock, I have 1.5 minutes left. So let's go through this quickly. So vendor rankings. Vendor rankings are ranking of software and IT service providers based on their revenue, growth, and market share. And specifically for the SAP Services Market, we do publish the rankings for our core markets around about this time, so beginning of Q4. So this can be used for communication purposes, but also for you to understand your competition in those markets better. Then last but not least, here's just a visual presentation of how you can use the rankings in your communication. So you can have a graph showing it, or you can also have these badges telling your clients that you are the market leader in a specific industry or country. So then consulting services, and I just wanted to share 3 projects that we're currently working on, all SAP related. So we work together with a mid-sized company, a service company, to help them understand what will happen to their revenues and how they can compensate the loss of the revenues through the reduced SAP hosting and application management services that will that come through SAP S/4HANA or RISE with SAP. So we help them understand how to set up their portfolio and how to prepare for the future. Then, as a second, we also help companies to understand their total addressable market in markets that they are in right now or that they are planning to invest in, just to give them like a base for decisions, a foundation for decisions. And we also help companies to expand inorganically through M&A activities, if it's adding offshore resources or onshore resources. We show possible targets. So this is the research agenda that, for our SAP services that we have planned for the coming months. I just wanted to mention one more thing. If you want to stay up to date with the latest IT service market and software market news in Europe, please subscribe to our newsletter. You will also get a list of deals that have been happening. It's a weekly newsletter, so you get weekly updates on the latest deals, the latest opportunities. So if there's any changes with the big organizations that you can use for your sales activities. And we'll also update you on our latest research. But this is it for the main part. We got through in time, just 1 minute over. So we will now answer a few questions. So first of all, for those that made it this far, thank you very much. I know we are over time now, but we will take 5 minutes to answer the questions that have risen. So just need to check here quickly. The first question that came in, Joachim, and this is for you. It's from Jennifer. Jennifer is asking, did you cover greenfield or brownfield migration approaches in your survey? And can you say something about that?
Yeah, we covered greenfield and brownfield as well in the course of our service. We have covered bluefield as well. We called it mixed approach, as bluefield actually is a brand name of SAP. And I do not can recall the exact numbers of how many companies are using the bluefield, greenfield, and brownfield approach. I remember that greenfield was the most used approach, more than 50% as far as I remember, and bluefield or mixed approach and brownfield were around about the same level, around about 25% or something else. And we have covered this. We have covered this in our last year's service as well. And we have analyzed the reasons for brownfield, greenfield, bluefield as well. But in this case, I do not really remember the results. But if you are interested in this, feel free to contact me later.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Also, if you want us to contact you, if you have a specific question, just put it in the Q&A and we can reach out to you afterwards. Joachim, we have another question from Richard. Let me just, Richard is asking, with the rise of BTP, what do you see is the opportunity for combined workflows, including other platforms such as ServiceNow?
Yep. Wow, difficult question. And not really an easy answer on this. What you should have in mind is that when we talk about BTP, we usually talk about SAP environments, and there's literally no company that uses only SAP. So in usual, we do have mixed environments, SAP and non-SAP environments, and BTP does not really. We haven't surveyed. We didn't ask for the usage of SAP of BTP outside of SAP environments. But my guess is that there is literally no usage outside of SAP. So there should be a space on a market or demand for combined usage, because usually you have interfaces between SAP. You have workflows they are implemented beyond SAP environments and so on. So that I would say there are opportunities to include not only SAP ServiceNow but also other applications or workflow engines or something else into the environment of user companies. But our surveys doesn't provide answer on this question. Hopefully that helps you a little bit.
All right, thank you very much. Then we have a question from an anonymous participant. SAP BTP is perceived as an expensive solution for application development. What are the main competitors for this, and how is the adoption of SAP BTP application development versus the competitors?
Interesting question, and you're absolutely right. BTP is very expensive, and companies try to avoid BTP as far as possible, because you have for every function call and so on, for every transaction you have to pay a fee on BTP. In terms of software development competitors, I would say clearly the hyperscalers. The hyperscalers provide large capabilities of environment and development platforms, and it depends a little bit on the environment the companies are already in, AWS, Azure, or Google, and the goal of the development, so the functionality of the goal, the development that depends a little bit. So there's no overall answer to this. But if you ask me to what are the main competitors, clearly the hyperscalers. Of course, you can view low-code, no-code providers such as Mendix or Pega and so on as competitors for software development. But all in all, the vast majority of software development will take or takes place on development platforms based on hyperscaler infrastructure.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Joachim. We have 3 more questions here, but in respect of our time and the time of the participants, we will get back to you in person, and we will contact you. So I would like to close this webinar for today. If you want to see us again, we have another webinar also based on a survey that we did on the topic of AI next week, same time. You will find a registration link on our website or on our LinkedIn profile. So yeah, thank you all very much for attending. Please feel free to reach out. There's some contact details that you see here. Take a screenshot. Otherwise, please feel free to go on our website, or if you have contact details, reach out to us directly. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.